Yo, just to start this off, the Clash wiki is shit, and I have no idea how to do an intro. Clash of Clans, a game which, if you own a mobile device, or even have internet access, you will undoubtedly know about. Now usually if you were searching for a video about Clash of Clans on YouTube, you'd perhaps be after a Town Hall 2 base design, a Queen Walk tutorial, or maybe advice on how to leave Gold 1. But today we'll be discussing a different topic. Have you ever been attempting the perfect funnel, only to have your main strike force go chasing an empty resource collector rather than the Town Hall? Ever tried a Queen Walk and had your Queen ignore the single target Inferno blasting a hole in her back, in favour of scrapping a spell factory? Well, this video will be of a more philosophical nature than other Clash videos, as we uncover how sentient your favourite troops in Clash of Clans are. Yes, that's right. How able are your troops to think for themselves? Is the wizard really the smartest troop in your barracks? Do golems truly have nothing going for them? Or are they more intelligent than you might first think? To answer these questions, we'll be taking a look at each troop in order, including heroes, dark barrack troops, and siege machines, kind of, but excluding super troops. They will go in the same category as their boring counterparts. Now, to accompany this, I have 4 tiers of sentience that our troops can fit into. These will be, first of all, NA, non-applicable, 2, insentient, 3, sentient, and 4, sentient emotional. We'll look at each troop in the order they appear in your barracks, with siege machines coming first as their special exception to the rule. With that all out of the way, I should think we're ready to begin, so grab a snack, strap in, and prepare yourself for a video that absolutely no one needed, or in fact asked for.
Stay with me.
First off, we'll be taking a look at the siege machines. Now, the siege machines are a special case because despite having a clear intent, so a direct wish to assault the town hall, as the name implies, siege machines are just that. They're machines, and we can assume them to be piloted by a third unseen party, as the game never states differently. Therefore, sentience is not applicable to siege machines, and they can be safely filed away under NA, or non-applicable. So now we'll proceed with the main body of the video, which is actually sorting the troops based on how sentient they seem. This video is completely opinion, and is also completely a joke, so draw your own conclusions on all of this stuff, however you wish. Number 1, obviously, is the Barbarian. Now, the Barbarian is the first of the completely brain-dead troops, with absolutely no sentience to speak of whatsoever. These furious freaks have no concept of priority, and are so blinded by their own rage that they would attack a cannonball if it was targetable. They attack the closest thing to them, and if there's nothing left to attack, they don't even realise their purpose has been served until they evaporate into an elixir cloud. Sentience score, insentient. The Archer is just the ranged female barbarian. Nothing special to say about the Archer, except that they act exactly the same and will again target whatever thing they are placed nearest to. With no direction to speak of and no autonomy in their decision making, they also clock in at a solid insentient and find a reserved spot next to the barbarian.
I am a giant. Stand up on my shoulders. Tell me what you see.
Now, the Giant is where things start to pick up a little bit, as this is the first troop to demonstrate a fair bit of its own sentience, if only, at a basic level. The Giant is capable of understanding and carrying out basic instructions, their main instruction being to target and destroy any and all defenses. However, It has no priority in this destruction and will simply target the first defense it detects being closest to. It will also take the path of least presumed resistance, often walking through traps to reach its destination. The giant may also demonstrate a sense of duty, however, as it will sacrifice itself to clear out aforementioned traps from the path of less durable troops. Sentient score, sentient instructed. Now, the goblin is where things get really interesting. The giant acts out of necessity in order to protect itself and others, but the goblin specifically puts itself in harm's way in order to obtain a luxury good, that being gold or elixir. The goblin's suicidal lust for all things glistening puts its sentience at a much higher standard than all the other troops. Again, the goblin is acting out of a personal desire. The giant does not desire to bring down defenses, but does so due to a command. However, the goblin rushes to claim goods out of personal greed, a greed that serves you as the player perfectly well. Sentient score, sentient emotional. Now, the wall breaker is kind of where things get very interesting. The wall breaker is a special case, and depending on what stance you take, you could honestly swing either way. The wall breaker specifically targets, to nobody's surprise, walls. However, its main method of destroying walls is offering itself up in a suicidal display by carrying a bomb and blowing itself up in order to damage or break a wall. Now, there's kind of two standpoints to the wall breaker argument, and those are as follows. Do wall breakers have the sentience to actively commit suicide, or do they have so little sentience that they have no idea of the consequence of their actions? They don't know that it will result in their death. Now, I believe it to be the former, as since they can have a precise target in mind and know how to deal with said target, dropping a bomb at their own feet in order to destroy a wall, they make the active choice to sacrifice themselves for the greater good, raising their motivations above self-preservation like the giants into the realm of martyrdom and granting the wall breaker a ceremonial spot at the table with the goblins. Sentient score, honorary sentient emotional.
We own the sky, you and
Now, balloons are the first air troop added into the cursed Clash troop mix, and can realistically be boiled down to being a cowardly wall breaker. As you can see, a skeleton, very similar to those of the wall breaker corps, pilots the balloon and also uses bombs as a primary weapon. They have a similar level of sentience to the giant and share a target, that being all defenses. However, mostly cower away until all air defenses have been taken care of, exhibiting self-preserving tendencies to a greater extent than the giant, yet also lacking the dutiful burden that giants shoulder. Sentient score, a cowardly sentient instructed.
That ain't working. That's the way you do it. Let me tell you, damn guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a
The wizard. Regarded as the smartest of all Clash troops, and yet in practice just as dumb as the barbarian. Yes, the wizard is completely insentient. He will bumble into harm's way at a moment's notice and throw fireballs with reckless abandon, ignoring defenses that place him in immediate mortal trouble to secure the destruction of a poor builder's house. Sentient score, insentient. Now, the healer is a very interesting case. Being unable to fight, she instead spreads salvation and healing among the less fortunate ground troops that are directly in harm's way. However, despite this, the healer is very surprisingly one of the least sentient of all of the troops. Bound to follow whichever troop she's targeting, she'll blindly charge in at Mach 5 into 27 air mines, an Inferno Tower, and an air defense, if only to provide one more tick of healing to the troops she follows. Her actions are decided by the sentience of the troop she's bound to, which lands the healer on the verge of essentially being completely brain dead, and giving her no sentience whatsoever. So her sentience score is essentially completely irrelevant. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over reiterating a few points by simply saying that the dragon is also completely insentient. In fact, less sentient than most, as the dragons don't need to deal with walls and often completely ignore the main menace to their existence, in favour of scolding the Barb King's scalp. Sentience score are boring insentient. The P.E.K.K.A. is essentially just the barbarian on a pentuple dose of steroids and enough armor to put a tank to shame. However, something it shares equally with the barbarian is how sentient it is. Often, however, it feels incomparably lower, and although the pair share the same set of rules, the P.E.K.K.A. will often abandon a perfectly vulnerable town hall in favour of a hidden Tesla that appears about 20 tiles behind it, for seemingly no reason. Sentience score, it feels like it should be less, but either way, a solid insentient. Another special case is the baby dragon. It has the same target selection as all other insentient units, which would normally land at the same rank, if not for the fact that it consents when it's alone, and has feelings toward being left alone, i.e. anger or sadness, right? Due to the fact that it can and does demonstrate complex emotional response, albeit of only one kind, I would put the baby dragon at a sentience score of sentient emotional. Editor's note, hello, Lee from the future, editor's note, I was incorrect in saying that they only have one kind of emotional response. In fact, they have two. Angry or sad, as previously mentioned, and calm at the presence of other airborne units, thereby definitely earning their spot as a sentient emotional. In the case of the miner, I would accredit these troops with the mental capacity to use a tool, but that would be much like giving the barbarian credit for being able to swing a sword. Again, much like the barbarians, they will target whatever structure is closest to them, and therefore I give them a sentience score of insentient. However, in favour of the miner appears, and I say appears with caution, appears to have extremely acute spatial reasoning, as they can plot bases down to a centimetre's accuracy with a mere glance, and can arrive at a target by tunnelling there underground. They even have the capacity to plot speed and predict where a unit will be in the case of an enemy hero or clan castle troop on a defense. Therefore, I'm slightly hesitant to put them in insentient. But technically, there's no way to disprove that they can actually smell their target. Therefore, I will have to leave them on the bottom shelf. Now, it may specialise in destruction and the laziest attack strategy known to man, but in terms of sentience, the Electro Dragon is nothing special at all. It flies to the nearest structure, blasts it with electricity, and if it's destroyed, it will move on. If not, it will repeat. Sentience score, a lame and lazy insentient. And now we reach the final member of the regular Elixir troops, that being the Yeti, as I'm sure you will be aware. To round off our Elixir troops, we have a very interesting case. Now the Yeti itself, were it alone, would have barely enough going for it to put it in insentient, as it will simply attack whatever structure is closest. But in redemption to that, the Yeti travels with companions, known as Yetimites. This secondary fact instantly proves that the Yeti deserves the rank of sentient emotional, as it is capable of making friends and maintaining friendly relationships. This doubles itself in the favour of the Yetimite, who scores the same, if you want to include them, as they react to their friend the Yeti being injured and even take it one step further by attacking defences that they recognise to be interfering with the Yeti. Jesus, that took me a long time to write. But we aren't done yet, fellas. We still have 13 more units to cover, those being the Dark Elixir troops, and finally, heroes. Writing this has cut about a third of my lifespan off, and I have to get back to replaying Bioshock for the 27th time, so let's get the remaining troops done and wrap this shit video up. The Minion. It's our first Dark Elixir troop and by far the most boring. Essentially only used as cleanup on Lava Loon attacks, it's a bitch-made troop with 0 balls, 0 sentience, and 0 independence. Sentient score, completely insentient. The Hog Rider is a little more interesting. Already gets the tier of sentient instructed just based off of its targeting type, but beyond that they have the mental capacity to both tame and train hogs. Because realistically a normal hog doesn't have the ability to leap a wall, only slightly shorter than a giant. This demonstrates that they clearly understand basic methods of training at a bare minimum, which, in my opinion, puts them up to sentient emotional. Good work, Hog Riders. Well done.
I slipped away.
The Valkyrie is kind of boring, honestly. It's just an AoE barb. That's pretty much all I have to say. Yeah. Yep, that's it. Insentient. A personal favourite troop of mine, the Golems earn a strong place at the instructed table purely by way of their attraction to defences. In the case of Golemites, I'm not sure if the original Golem is actually aware that he has 2 smaller Golems inside of him or not, but either way, what does it matter? They're all doomed by the single Inferno anyway. Sentient score, sentient instructed. I'm not too sure how to feel about the Witch, honestly. Her attack preference doesn't do her any favours, but she's clearly versed in the dark arts, suggesting an intellect beyond your average Clash unit. However, she doesn't have the wherewithal to actually send her skeletons into peril ahead of her, instead just walking into whatever danger they should have averted. So, I'll give the Witch a perhaps unfair insentient. The Lava Hound is a good one, as it seems to have a fairly similar vision to the Wallbreaker. They will plunge headfirst into danger in order to clear the way for fellow air troops and buy them time by distracting the main threat, which are air defences. On top of that, they have a vested interest in doing so, as when they die, they release their spawn, the lava pups, who will naturally grow to replace their parent past the attack. Now, if the Lava Hound is actually a type of dog, then it appears all the Lava Hounds in Clash of Clans are female, but that's a topic for another video. Anyway, I'm really not sure about this one. Very torn between the 2 higher sentience brackets, so I will just put it in sentient emotional, subject to debate. In my opinion, the bowler is just cracked archer, and as such kind of belongs in the same bracket, honestly. that being insentient. However, I'm not certain whether they can aim or calculate their ricochet. If they can, that would be a game changer, and it would definitely bump them up a tier. However, I've scoured the wiki and the wider internet as well, and found really nothing on the subject, so I have to assume that they can't, and I'll keep them low. Score insentient. In terms of sentience, the ice golem doesn't actually quite match up to the regular golem, despite both of them ending up in the same bracket. And this is purely because, as stated in the golem segment, the golem carries 2 miniature golem children inside of it. Also, as stated, I'm not certain it's aware of this, but on the off chance that it is, that grants it a very slightly higher amount of sentience. That said, they both still up as sentient instructed due to their targeting type, however you want to see it. Now we present the last, and arguably most sentient basic troop in the entire game, the Headhunter. The Headhunter seeks out the thrill of battle and glory in a way that no other troop has any comprehension of. Her cards are poison tipped, and due to her targeting type, actively seeking out enemy heroes and dealing 4 times the damage, she obviously displays a type of sentience even surpassing that of the self-sacrificing Wallbreaker and the loot-hungry Goblin. For whilst the loot the Goblin steals is a necessity to your village, the act of murdering enemy heroes is almost completely irrelevant, as sooner or later the rest of your troops will dogpile in and club them on the head anyway. Sentient score, murder hungry, sentient, emotional. And now, finally, the end of this shit video draws near. I have put way too much effort into writing this. I can't stop now, or I'll lapse into a coma, so let's round it out with the 4 heroes in the game. Once again, as per usual, in the order you unlock them. Just to preface this final segment, there is a painfully small amount of information on the heroes and their behaviours in-game, so I've gone onto the wiki for pretty much everything. However, the cock wiki sucks dick, so as with everything else in this video, don't take it seriously. Continuing the trend of comparing dumb and insentient troops to some kind of barbarian, the Barb King is just cracked barbarian. It's not the worst troop in the game, but it sucks in terms of sentience. You'd have thought that maybe all of that dark elixir would give him a little more brain power, but it just made him larger and gave him back knee. I've read every last word on his wiki page from top to bottom, and he doesn't have a single redeeming quality, so he's going in the bottom tier with all the other brainless troops. At the risk of repeating myself, I'm just going to get this one done quickly. The Archer Queen's sentience, it's just trash. It just sucks. Her damage and skill are good, but that's not what we're here to analyze. It's the same as the Archer in terms of decision making, etc. Her only slightly redeeming quality is that she figured out how to work an X-bow as a handheld weapon, which is nowhere near enough to cope with my increasingly harsh judgment. Insentient. Finally, the Grand Warden, one of the troops I've been most desperate to talk about. the Grand Warden is damn near the hallmark of sentience when it comes to Clash of Clans. He has studied the book and the staff, and he uses his knowledge to not only buff nearby troops, but actually stay grouped with the largest cluster of troops he can find. Sometimes his decision making is a bit lackluster, but the fact that he can do it at all speaks to the power of his sentience. On top of that, he not only has an active ability, like all the other heroes, but he even has a passive ability. What other troop has a passive ability? None. Not any of them. Bruh, it's only the Warden. How insane is that? Active and passive. Such genius and cutting-edge sentience cannot be ignored. And as such, he heads straight to the top. I would have liked to have ended this video on a high note with perhaps the Warden, but at least it won't be a low note. The Royal Champion has average sentience. She targets defenses, can use and throw a shield, and ricochet it too, unlike the bowlers, and can also leap walls. Overall, she's not bad. Slightly boring when it comes to sentience, but life is full of disappointments. And there you have probably the least requested video on the whole internet. Overall, the only thing I learned whilst making this video is that the Clash Wiki just sucks. It's just trash. The information is completely false for pretty much everything but the most basic of things. You know, that said, for all the complaining I was doing that whole time, I did have a great time making this video. Honestly, I had so much fun. If you have anything to say about it, let me know in the comments. Smash like, obliterate it, decimate, subscribe if you're interested. I'm going to be doing a Valheim review for my next video. Review gameplay, something. I'll mix it up. It should be good. Let's hope so anyway. Overall, hope you enjoyed. I had a great time with this one. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. You got something to say? Say it. I'd be overjoyed to hear what you thought. Be it good or bad, I'm down for criticism, obviously. And I might see you in the next one.